So Chris, we're in May 2012 and the government has decreed that there'll be a big badger cull or killing in a couple of areas in the countryside, and this is one of them, Gloucestershire. And that's because badgers get and pass TB onto cattle and vice versa indeed. I wonder, would you explain about what TB is and tell us more about all of that, please?
Well, TB, tuberculosis, and we're talking about bovine tuberculosis, is a disease that can affect animals as well as people. And they're called zoonotic diseases. They affect animals as well as man. And it is the case that badgers can get TB. They can get it from cattle, and they can also give it back to cattle. So they are implicated in this disease that we see in cattle, bovine TB. And a lot of farmers think that they're mainly to blame. And of course, if you've got an animal giving disease to your livestock, the solution that springs to mind is get rid of them, kill them, cull them. And we have investigated the problem, and we found that if you cull a badger population, you can disrupt the population's social order, the way they organise themselves into groups and have a territory and are very stable. If you disrupt that, you can actually help spread the disease. So it doesn't follow that if you cull badgers, you will make it better. You can actually make it worse. And this has been proven. We did a big trial where in some areas badgers were culled, and in other areas they were left alone. And at the end of 10 years, the results were compared, and it was found that culling badgers actually makes no difference at all to the disease in the cattle. And it's because in the middle of the areas that you cull, you can have a bit of an improvement in the cattle TB. But on the edge, you get this disruptive effect, and it makes it worse. And they cancel each other out. So culling doesn't make any sense as a means of controlling. Culling badgers doesn't make any sense as a way of controlling TB in cattle. And most scientists, like me, believe that the solution lies in vaccines. You vaccinate badgers, and then you hopefully will reduce the occurrence of disease.
Would you explain about vaccination, exactly what that means for children, please?
Vaccination is giving an injection or feeding a bait which contains the vaccine to an animal or a person, and what it does is make that individual's immunity resistant to a disease. So it will sometimes prevent the acquisition or the person getting infected with a disease, or it will prevent that person developing an infectious form of the disease and transmitting it to somebody else, same with animals. So vaccines are intended to help protect people or animals against acquiring diseases.
I think as children, I seem to remember having a TB
we had our
BCG jabs as children.
In the arm, and it leaves a little scar.
Yes.
And that's something that in this country has been going on for many, many years, and it does provide reasonably good protection against getting TB in later life. It doesn't totally protect you, but it does help to some extent not getting infected. So it's worth doing these things with both badgers and cattle to help them prevent them getting infected with TB.
So how far away are the scientists and the chemical companies away from developing vaccines for both badger and cows?
I think we'll see an available vaccine for both badgers and cattle probably within the next 5 years.
Oh, pretty soon then. Pretty
soon. Certainly the government are talking about culling, which is going to last 9 years. Now within that time scale, there's going to be a vaccine available.
Okay.
So you have to question the government's wisdom in setting up something which is going to be possibly counterproductive in terms of making it worse, when vaccines are going to be available within 5 to 10 years, which won't have any of the negative effects of killing or culling.
And there's many different arguments, aren't there? A lot of political debate and arguments around this issue. You've been working on this issue for 40 years, and it's a very complex issue, but a lot of it is about political decisions, is my understanding.
To me, as a scientist, I think it's a source of huge regret that the subject of TB in badgers and cattle has become so political. Politicians make decisions based not just on the science, but on things like the cost and whether they're going to get votes at the end of the day. And farmers seem to think it's a good idea to kill badgers, so politicians think, well, in order to get farmers' votes, we'll support them in their idea of killing badgers. And I'm afraid that is just the politics. The fact that it's not going to work isn't, I don't think, as important in a politician's mind as the fact that it's going to get him a vote at the next election.
So there's a plan behind it all.